Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. This all went down recently, so I figured I'd share the crazy tale. For obvious reasons, I didn't want to spill the beans while everything was still unfolding. Last year, I purchased a mobile home and decided to rent it out. The place needed some TLC, so I advertised 2 months of free rent for anyone willing to install new carpets in the living room, hook up the water heater, and put in a toilet. I found this young couple, Jaden and Mia, who had just had a baby. They were game for the deal. No lease, just a month-to-month agreement, no security deposit, and the rent was set at $500 per month. They did the work, so I didn't charge them for the first 2 months. Everything seemed cool at first. Quick side note, there are a few state laws that come into play here. If a tenant doesn't pay rent for 3 consecutive months, they're considered squatters. That means the landlord doesn't have to maintain the property and can actually lock them out. If someone's on probation and gets formally evicted, that's a violation. Even if you've already moved out, the landlord can still formally evict you to recoup unpaid rent. And despite eviction bans, if the process started before the ban, it can still proceed under certain conditions. It's ultimately up to the judge's discretion. Fast forward 6 months and Jaden and Mia hadn't paid a dime in rent. Yeah, they had a newborn and were young and broke, but Jaden managed to shell out $1,500 for a new engine for his project car. They could afford to eat out and buy electronics, but not pay rent. After that third missed month, I didn't take any action. Winter was coming, and I hadn't installed the furnace I'd promised. If it weren't for the baby, I would have locked them out. They were bragging about their tax refund, so I gave them a chance to catch up, but they basically said they knew their rights and were on a rent strike. Illegally, as you'll see. COVID hit, and Jaden got laid off, so I cut them some slack. When he went back to work, I asked for the back rent again, but they told me to buzz off. I had enough. I gave them 14 days to vacate or face a formal eviction, which Jaden knew could mean jail time since he was on probation. I was honestly trying to avoid an eviction on their record and keep Jaden out of jail. I wanted to be civil about it, but when they finally left, I discovered they had taken everything they had installed, the stuff they got free rent for. I was livid and filed for a formal eviction. It didn't go as they had hoped. They claimed I hadn't provided heat, so they were on a rent strike. Except they didn't file that with the court or set aside the unpaid rent. They just stopped paying. The judge agreed that what they had installed was worth less than the rent they owed. And the kicker? When Jaden started trashing my character, I mentioned, well, you didn't tell me you were going to be on probation when you rented the place. The judge, who had been zoning out, perked up at that. He asked if it was true, and when they confirmed it, he was ready to make his ruling. I was awarded 15 months of back rent at $500 per month, plus $2,000 in damages for how they had removed the installations and wrecked the place. As for Jaden, the judge had no choice but to report the eviction to his probation officer. Fast forward to this month. Jaden's probation was violated, and he was arrested. They actually had the nerve to ask me to speak on his behalf. Hell no. The ruling was that his remaining 6 months would be served in jail. They got a nasty eviction on their record, and they still owe me money. Don't play games with the law if you don't know the rules. The next one is an entitled people story. I never thought I'd see the day when my pretty little neighborhood transformed into a flooded mess, but that's exactly what happened after the hurricane rolled through last August. My house stood strong through the storm, with only minor damage to the siding and roof. The real trouble came in the aftermath, when the overflowing creek behind our community spilled its banks. Before we knew it, water was gushing down the streets, flooding driveways and backyards. It was a chaotic scene, with neighbors scrambling to move their cars to higher ground and haul their patio furniture inside. The water just kept rising, swallowing up sidewalks and turning roads into rivers. Our homeowner association, which is run by a board of stuck-up retirees with nothing better to do, was nowhere to be found during the actual flooding. But once the water receded after 2 days, they popped up quicker than mosquitoes in July. I came home after staying at my sister's place to find a fancy printed notice on my front door. It was a violation notice from the homeowner association, telling me I needed to restore my property to pre-flood conditions within 5 days, or face fines. These people had to be crazy. I'd just been hit by a hurricane and major flooding. Did they think I could snap my fingers and magically fix everything immediately? When I called to explain the absurdity of their demand, the homeowner association manager, Janet, gave me attitude right off the bat. "Rules are rules," she said snootily. "We can't allow residents to live in unsightly conditions." According to her, the homeowner association bylaws gave them the authority to force compliance, no matter what the circumstances. I tried reasoning with her again, pointing out it was a natural disaster far beyond my control, but Janet didn't want to hear it. She made some snide comments about me making excuses and not taking responsibility for my own property. I wanted to reach through the phone and smack her, but I took a deep breath and politely but firmly told Janet I would not be adhering to their unreasonable 5-day deadline. Flood damage repairs were going to take time, especially with contractors booked up dealing with the hurricane aftermath. She huffed and told me I'd be receiving daily fines then. With that, she hung up on me. Over the next few weeks, I did what I could to clean up and make repairs, but I had to prioritize safety issues before cosmetic fixes. The homeowner association fines piled up fast, $100 a day at first, then $250 a day after 2 weeks. It was madness. I started to worry these outrageous penalties would bankrupt me before I could even finish fixing everything. That's when I decided enough was enough. I wasn't going to let this petty homeowner association push me around and bleed me dry with unfair fines. I found a lawyer who agreed to help me fight their ridiculous demands. We ended up taking the homeowner association to court over the insane fines. In front of the judge, Janet and the other board members presented themselves as upstanding citizens trying to uphold neighborhood standards. They claimed my property was an eyesore that was negatively affecting home values. My lawyer shut their nonsense down real quick, providing evidence that all surrounding houses were in similar condition post-flood. When my turn came, I told the judge exactly what I'd gone through with the hurricane and flooding. I showed photos documenting the damage and repairs underway. I also provided contractor invoices proving I was actively working to fix things. The judge turned out to be super reasonable, unlike the homeowner association tyrants. He immediately deemed their 5-day demand and exponential fine increases unfair and invalid given the circumstances. Not only did he throw out all the fines, but he prohibited the homeowner association from issuing any further penalties related to flood damage. The look of shock and outrage on the board members' faces was priceless. Before closing the case, the judge reprimanded the homeowner association for overstepping their authority and failing to grant residents a reasonable timeline for repairs. He urged them to reconsider their harsh bylaws and fine schedules moving forward. They didn't seem too happy about that advice, but it was about time someone put these bullies in their place. Thanks to the judge's ruling, I only had to pay the original homeowner association fines issued before I got the lawyer involved. It still stung to hand over that money for things beyond my control, but it sure beat the $25,000 plus they were trying to squeeze out of me. The experience left a bitter taste in my mouth toward the homeowner association, but the sweetest part was seeing their smug grins wiped away in court when justice was served. It just goes to show, you shouldn't let power-hungry homeowner associations intimidate you. If they overstep their bounds, it's important to stand up for yourself and fight back against their coercion. After this whole ordeal, I learned it's wise to document everything involving the homeowner association and save evidence to support your case. Although it took time and money to hold them accountable in court, it was totally worth it. Thanks to the reasonable judge, I avoided financial disaster. Never again will I let an homeowner association levy insane fines and penalties on me unjustly. If they cross the line, I won't hesitate to let a court intervene and smack down their unfair demands. The next one is a petty revenge story. I'm a truck driver and I deliver goods to a chain of stores. Not all the managers are very nice. This time I got to deal with a total Karen for the second time. My job is to get the pallet inside the store, just across the threshold, and that's it. Most ask us to put it somewhere specific and usually well are willing. This woman is no exception. She asked if I would put the pallets around the corner a few feet away from the door. I do this and the first gets picked up by her staff. I put the second one in that spot and a third just over the threshold because that's the only available space left. I can get 3 pallets on the hydraulic lift, so I go get another set. I get back after a few minutes and the last pallet was still there. The Karen told me she would only pick it up if I would set it around the corner because she couldn't get to it there, a clear lie, and she's tried something like that before. It's a total power play on her part, getting me to do something she should do herself even if it takes me 3 times longer, so I grab her pallet lift and stick it under the pallet. See? Looks fine to me, please just work with me. And that's how the argument started. If I don't like my job, I should go do something else, she said. I told her that if she would just work with her drivers and not against, she wouldn't have a problem with people not wanting to do extras for her. She started name-calling and gave me the finger, and I just left everything as it was and drove off, leaving her to get the other 3 pallets from outside up the slope into the store. Didn't bother asking her to sign the papers because of obvious reasons. No one treats me like that and gets away with it. I hope I don't get into serious trouble. This happened a few hours ago and my employer has yet to read my email about it. 1010 would do it again, though. The next one is a malicious compliance story. So, I'm a professional chef and I have been for a few years, and in Australia, apprentice chefs are trained in a sort of college where we learn about 150 recipes. Now, many of the recipes are provided to the students in bulky, finicky booklets that you wouldn't really want to take anywhere with you, so I started writing some of the recipes in a separate notebook along with some other recipes I'd learnt from coworkers or family members and created a sort of pseudo-cookbook, and I would often bring this book into the kitchen so I would remember ingredient quantities and cooking times, and eventually I would leave the book in the kitchen pretty much around the clock. What I soon found out was that some of the other chefs in the kitchen were using my cookbook to check official recipes for the restaurant we worked for, as typically the head chef would have to tell them, and this got annoying for everyone. And this restaurant was a part of a popular sports club in the local area, so consistency was extremely important to management as such. Having a written record of the new recipes or changes to longtime recipes was very important. As it turned out, management had stopped making changes to the official club recipe book a few months before I even started, so my book became the de facto official recipe book. For a while, this was no issue to me, and I kept adding new recipes to it throughout the next few years. However, after my third year working there, I finished my studies and became fully qualified as a chef, so I suddenly became more expensive to keep on as a staff member, and as such, management started looking for any reason to replace me with a new apprentice. Eventually, they found someone to replace me and gave a half-assed reason for firing me and told me to take all my things and leave as I could no longer offer what they were looking for. So I took everything I owned and left, including the notebook with all the club's recipes. For a few days, not a whole lot happened, but slowly the club's reviews started complaining about bland food, dry cakes, inconsistent classic recipes, and every other food-related thing you could think of. At one point, there was 50 negative reviews in a single day, which for our town was a massive amount of negative reviews in one day. It felt pretty damn good since I felt they deserved it and left me unemployed on short notice. However, I was quickly offered a new job by a smaller restaurant whose owner knew me from the sports club kitchen. The malicious compliance. After about a week, I received multiple calls, and after answering one, I heard one of the higher managers at the sports club asking if I could return the book as the kitchen needed it back. I obviously laughed and said firmly that it was my book full of my recipes, so it wasn't going anywhere near them, reminding them that they had told me I could no longer offer what they were looking for. The manager clearly began to panic as he offered to give me my job back and just let bygones be bygones. I already had a new job, so I completely brushed off this offer and ignored him. I hung up pretty soon after that. I started putting the recipes from my book on the new restaurant's menu, and it was beginning to attract a few regular customers of the sports club, so I quickly found myself with more and more responsibility and command within the kitchen, to the point that about a third of the menu was from my book. Now this slow trickle of sports club regulars picked up speed after about 3 months, and lead to several high-level managers from the club deciding to visit the restaurant I'd helped build and virtually demanded I give them my cookbook, claiming it would be much more beneficial for the community if they had it. My head chef laughed in their faces and told them to piss off. It's been about 2 years, and my head chef and I have a very positive relationship, and the customer base we have at the restaurant is better than ever. We didn't take every customer from the big club, but it was enough damage to their profits to scare a few investors away and also lead to a decent bit of damage to one of the higher managers' reputations. Furthermore, the recipe issues and negative reviews lead to the majority of the kitchen quitting, and according to one of my old colleagues, they cited the lack of support and organization from upper management as the final reasons everyone was quitting, and this led to an even larger dip in the quality of the restaurant food. I also get paid significantly more at this restaurant than I was at the sports club. The next one is an entitled people's story. So I, 28M, have a friend who is in her 50s. We are close friends, the kind where you don't talk often, but when you do, it's always really good. We mainly talk about our pets, and she's been there for me a lot. I value her and our friendship, I really, really do. There's only one issue. You see, one does not disagree with her. She has very strong opinions and will shove them down everyone's throat. She's notorious in all pet stores, and for all the wrong reasons. I am not too bothered by it. I just know when to shut my mouth and agree. Arguing is not worth it, and I find our friendship more important than being right about something. Edit. It was brought to my attention that this kind of comes off as me condoning this behavior. What I meant is that I wasn't too bothered with how she treated me, not how she treated others. With how our friendship was, I didn't really get to see her treat others this way. I was told stories, but she always made it sound like they provoked it, and I believed it. That's why it didn't bother me. Only when writing this post I started to connect the dots. And as I mentioned in my other edit, I sometimes struggle with knowing what is normal or not. I now know this is not normal. It has never been a problem. Until now. When I brought up wanting a Doberman, she was rather judgmental, saying that I am too insecure to raise a dog and that a dog wouldn't solve my mental problems. I found her assumptions hurtful and untrue, even if she probably meant well. Obviously, a dog won't make my mental illness go away, but I think taking care of a dog and having a companion has been helpful for a lot of people, especially with mental illness. It just so happens that a Doberman is exactly what I want, as they fit my lifestyle. I am also not as spineless or insecure as she made me out to be. It's just that I don't argue with her because I know she would end our whole friendship over me not agreeing on something. I don't waste my energy on an argument that won't lead anywhere. So I just didn't mention it again, and I wasn't super upset. I just decided not to talk to her about it. A few weeks later, I sent a video of a puppy I have my eyes on. I hoped that maybe she'd be happy for me now. Somehow I thought she would be. Instead, she sent me a voice message demanding I tell her which exact reasons I have to get a Doberman. It made me feel like I had to justify my decision to her like I need her permission. Me having this dog won't affect her, so I find this weird and honestly kind of entitled. Also, I knew she'd just disagree with all my reasons, so I politely said that I know she doesn't think that I am the right person for this, but that I disagree and I have done a lot of research, which I definitely have. I have considered this for literal years, although I didn't talk to her about that until I previously mentioned the dog. I just didn't see a reason to, and I still don't. Like I said, it doesn't affect her, and it's not like we talk a lot, nor do we talk about everything. I told her she has nothing to worry about, and that the decision wasn't impulsive. She was immediately upset. She said I was very defensive, even though I acted calm and polite. However, I simply didn't agree and I didn't want to justify my decision. This is probably the first time I said no to her. She started going off about how dangerous this dog is, that it's not the right breed for me, that she knows a lot more about this than me, and that I should be able to explain why I want one, especially to her. Now, she does know a lot about animals, but judging by what she said about the breed, she doesn't know as much as she claims. They were very outdated views, and some of the facts were just wrong. She said that I only want this dog to have as a shield, and that I am going to end up with a weapon I can't control, etc. I said multiple times that I understand and respect her opinion, and that I was sorry for upsetting her, but that I don't agree and didn't like her initial question. According to her, I turned her into someone she's not, and I was extremely defensive. Again, I was very calm and never accusatory, while she sent me long voice messages in which she was yelling and crying. It seems everything I said just made her more angry. She ended by saying I've insulted her and that I should know what that feels like. I said I was sorry about that and that I hope we can talk about this when we're both calm. I am extremely confused about what I did wrong, and I am honestly kind of angry because I feel like she's simply mad at me for not agreeing with her. She knows as well as I do that I will put all of my time and energy into this dog, that I am someone who will make well-informed decisions and won't hesitate to ask a professional dog trainer for guidance. And even if we are close, we are not so close that I need to involve her into a decision like this, but it seems she thinks I can't do this without her approval. Anyway, I haven't heard from her since, and I suspect she expects me to apologize. I'm not sure what to do, except wait until she calms down, and then starts talking to me again like nothing happened. I might have to rethink this friendship. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.